If you're trying to keep up with the Australian property market right now, your head is probably spinning. We're seeing all these confusing headlines, right? Prices are booming, but a slowdown is just around the corner. Rate cuts are giving people more borrowing power, but now rate hikes are back on the table. So what is actually going on? Well, today we're going to unpack this massive tug-of-war to get to the bottom of the one question on everyone's mind. What's next for house prices?
Okay, let's just dive straight into the numbers that are making waves. We're talking about some seriously eye-watering forecasts for the next couple of years.
Look at this number, just over $134,000. Now, according to a major forecast from Westpac, that's how much the median house in Perth is predicted to jump by the end of 2027. And believe me, Perth is not the only city we're talking about here.
Which naturally leads to this massive question for pretty much all of us, doesn't it? Whether you're trying to buy your first place, looking to upgrade, or even invest, it really feels like the goalposts for that great Australian dream are on the move once again.
And this table here gives you the full picture across all the major capitals. I mean, if these predictions are even close to accurate, Sydney's median house could be pushing $1.7 million. You've got Melbourne, Brisbane, and Perth all soaring well past that $1 million mark. We are looking at six-figure jumps pretty much across the board. It's wild.
So, you've got to ask, what on earth is driving this? What are these forces that are pushing prices sky high? Well, it's kind of a classic economic story of supply and demand, but, with a few very modern twists.
At its very core, it really boils down to two incredibly powerful dynamics hitting at the same time. On one side, you have buyers with a whole lot more money to spend, and on the other, there just aren't enough homes to go around. So let's break that down a bit.
First up, borrowing power. Remember those 3 cash rate cuts from the Reserve Bank back in 2025? Well, they meant buyers suddenly had much deeper pockets. An analysis from CanStar showed that for a single person on an average wage, their borrowing capacity shot up by an estimated $35,000. This is a huge boost, and it just pours fuel on the fire of competition.
And then you've got the other half of the story, supply, or really, the lack of it. This data from the ABS shows a massive disconnect. So approvals for units, they surged, up over 34% in just 1 month. But approvals for new, standalone houses, they barely moved, just up 1.5%. So you've got all this extra borrowing power chasing a tiny pool of new houses. It's the perfect storm for price growth.
But, of course, it's never that simple, is it? This market isn't just a runaway train with no brakes. There are also some very real, very powerful forces pulling back and trying to slow things down.
The experts who watch this stuff day in and day out, they're starting to notice a change. As Tim Lawless from Cotality points out, that frantic pace of growth we saw was already starting to lose a bit of steam towards the end of 2025. It feels like the market might be getting just a little bit exhausted.
And here's the real plot twist. Just after a year of rate cuts that supercharged the market, the Reserve Bank has put a rate hike firmly back on the table. If inflation doesn't behave, the exact same lever that boosted everyone's borrowing power could get yanked in the other direction, which would pour a whole lot of cold water on the market.
So what happens when you get these massive push forces and these strong pull forces all colliding at once? Well, you get a really complex, fragmented market. Instead of one single trend across the country, we are seeing a total patchwork of different stories playing out, city by city, and even within houses and units.
This breakdown of the yearly forecasts really highlights that split. Just look at how the growth expectations change so much, not just from city to city, but also from one year to the next. This is definitely not a single unified boom. And this chart for 2025 just makes it crystal clear. Look at that difference. Perth and Brisbane are forecast to rocket up by 14%. Meanwhile, Sydney, which is usually the market leader, is predicted to grow by a much calmer 6%. That's more than double the pace in some cities compared to others. And this split doesn't just stop at city borders. It's also about what kind of property you're buying. While the market for houses is incredibly tight, affordability is becoming a massive problem. And that's pushing more and more buyers towards units, particularly in places like Brisbane, Adelaide, and Perth, where unit prices are actually expected to grow faster than house prices. Okay, so we've looked at the big forecasts, the push factors, the pull factors, and this fragmented market it's creating. So let's bring it all home. What does all of this actually mean for you if you're trying to figure out your next move? I think this quote from CanStar Sally Tyndall just cuts right to the heart of it. For first-home buyers who are looking at another potential 6-figure price rise, the hard reality is that getting a foot on that ladder might mean making some serious compromises. That dream of the perfect home in the perfect spot,
it might have to be put on hold. So, to wrap this all up, what are the key things to take away? First, yeah, the forecasts are pointing to more growth, but nothing is a guarantee, especially with potential rate hikes looming. Second, this market really is a genuine tug of war. Third, where you buy and what you buy has probably never been more important. And finally, affordability. That is now the main character driving this entire story, and it's shaping where the demand goes next.
All of this really leaves us with one final, much bigger question to think about. As the price to get into the property market keeps climbing higher, and the kind of home people can actually afford starts to change, what does that great Australian dream of homeownership even look like for the next generation?